Hey guys, I'm sitting in front of a Mahindra Roxor. It's a fairly new vehicle to the US market, but it uses very ancient, very simple, and very bulletproof technology. From the 40s to the early 90s, four-wheel drive vehicle configurations is basically what's in this. The only downside is it's all made in India, and India is not known for their durability, machining tolerances, metallurgy, etc. It's still a very solid vehicle, but we've been going through this one, coming up with good bearing kits, upgraded seal kits, which we're actually going to check today before I release them for sale. We've been doing some R&D. I've got a little over 1,000 very, very hard miles on this unit with our upgraded components in it. It's done very good. I've also upgraded the drive shafts. It's got Spicer ring and pinions in it, 5:38 ratio, 35-inch tires. It's a very, very nice vehicle to drive. It goes anywhere I want to go. Even some places that a lot of Jeeps can't go, especially the new four-door Jeeps. Hardly any two-door Jeeps being made anymore. And I can go places that a 50 or 60 or $70,000 updated or upgraded Rubicon can't go. It's pretty nice. But we're gonna take the hub off of this. I've already done the other side, checking the upgraded spindle seal setup that I came up with from the factory. It's got kind of a metal slinger, and it basically acts like a mud scoop, and it tears the seals up. And the Indian seals are more plastic than rubber. You can kind of pinch a seal and tear it. But I've put real rubber seals in and a little different configuration. The other side checked out great. I just thought maybe if you have one of these, or if you thought about buying one of these and you wanted to see, oh, it looks like, an old Jeep or, something like that. We'll go through, and yeah, it's an old four-wheel drive vehicle. It's rock solid. So we'll just go through it. Something else we'll check. I know I have a little water intrusion from something else. I actually got a fix for that. These bolts on this is a mile marker locking hub that I put on. The bolts are really hard to get tight. You can't get a socket on it without clearancing it. I've already clearanced the other side so I can torque it properly. And you just use a carbide burr. Focus. Use a good carbide burr and just go slow, and it'll clearance out real nice, and you can get a socket on it. The other upgrade that I just put into the works yesterday is we're going to go with a good quality socket cap, hex bolt. It's pretty hard to find one that's not kind of a cheesy grade. Or one that's just either a plain finish or a black oxide coating, which both of those will rust. I found, I believe, a good, I believe at least a grade 8 that is zinc coated. So we'll be, I'm getting a bag of those in tomorrow, I believe, and we're gonna look at the spec sheet on them and put those on the website. These I went with super grade 8 bolts. The heads are a little bit taller than a regular grade 8, hoping that there would be enough meat on there for a socket to grab without clearancing these hubs, and there's not. The worn hubs, I didn't have an issue with my socket anyway. Some sockets might be a little bit thicker and have an issue, but I've got, like I said, I've got good hex cap screws coming. So that was one little upgrade I just come out with yesterday, checking on other upgrades. So I know there's going to be a little water intrusion in this, so we're checking this new fancy grease as well. Usually, you know, we've been selling this castor oil grease for ever, using it for forever. 25 plus years in equipment, in all our vehicles. In my boat trailer, it absorbs water and it doesn't break down. You know, I gotta re-grease my boat trailer about every year, but I have yet to lose a bearing since I've been using this on the boat trailer. This stuff is high temp, high performance, real sticky stuff. Instead of absorbing water like most greases do, which this one absorbs a lot more water than most greases and still functions. This one just sticks to the metal surfaces and it doesn't absorb the water. It's a little different than what I'm used to. And it's real high temp. This particular stuff is good up to 600 something degrees versus most greases are good up to 300 something. So we're just checking the water, you know, how it does with water. On the other side, there wasn't a whole lot of water in there, but it did very good. The grease didn't break down. I didn't even re-grease the hub. I didn't need to. I did clean out the outer bearing all the way. I did repack that just to inspect it. I didn't need to. So we're just going to go through taking this all apart so that you guys can see what it takes. Our lift isn't installed in our new building yet, so I got my snazzy knee pads on. If you haven't used knee pads when working on a vehicle, well, you haven't worked on enough vehicles on the concrete floor. Tools you're going to need are 19 mil for the brake calipers, 9/16 for the flange, either the drive flange on the factory drive flange or a locking hub. If your locking hubs can fit a narrow walled socket, you know, use a narrow walled 9/16. After I clearance these, I'm going to use this. Once I back them out a little bit, I can get this on. Hammer, if you've got the factory drive flange, you need a hammer to kind of tap off the cap. And also, once you get back to the spindle, if it's a little stuck on there, just kind of light taps with the spindle. Pry bar to help get the hub off. Let's see, what else? And then a 21 millimeter to get the wheel nuts off. And in my case, I need a, what is this, 9/64 Allen to get the outer locking hubcap off. And then snap ring pliers to get the little snap ring off. And also a, let's see, QT 1011 spindle nut socket. And if you do repack the bearings, a QT 5500 bearing packer. And a little bit of brake cleaner is good. If you can get the chlorinated stuff in your state, fantastic. If not, I'm sorry. Get the best stuff you can find in that case. So, and a couple of picks to get the spindle nut washer off really helps. All right, so let's just kind of get after it. We're going to do this in real time. Sorry, it's a little painful to watch. It does take a few minutes, but it's not really bad. It's the same as any other vehicle front end, four-wheel drive front end you worked on, from 40s to, you know, up to 97 in some cases. So here we go. Something else the pry bar is good for, helping get the tire on and off. As you can see, I do have wheel spacers. I'm running pretty wide tires with the factory wheels, so I had to go wheel spacers. So didn't really want wide tires. It's the only tire I could get, and this tread was kind of wide. And I don't really like wheel spacers, but it didn't make much sense to dump a bunch of money into new wheels when I already had some. So that's the route we went. Oh, forgot, you also need the 19 for the wheel spacers in my case. Oh yeah, either an S-hook or a piece of wire to hang your brake caliper. It's going to be required. And notice I'm not using a lot of fancy tools. I've got them, but most people don't have the fancy tools. And I want you guys to see what it looks like for the average Joe that should have most of this stuff. Maybe you don't have a fancy impact socket or fancy ugga-dugga gun or clickety-clack gun. You don't need those. You know, just something that fits on the bolt head. Is if all you got's a set of crescents, well, that'll get you most of the way there. Make sure if you do use a clickety-clack gun for the small screws like this, and it has a speed setting, set it on low. Oh yeah, unlock the hub too. That'll take the spring, any spring pressure off the gears so the cap doesn't come flying off at you. Alright, this is where your snap ring pliers come in. So the snap ring on this holds this shaft out, so not only so it can retain the seal in the back, but also so the center line of the U-joints, or in my case I have RCV shafts now in this, so the center line is not further in on the for the pivot point between your ball joints. It'd be a bad day if you started turning and the shaft was floated in some and it didn't, most of the time it will kind of pull itself out when you turn, but it'd be a bad day if it didn't. All right. My 9/16 wrench. These bolts. Get them. I don't know if you can see it on the camera. Probably hear it. The hub is loose. Don't ask me what happened putting it on, but I guess it's good that it's loose because then I can check stuff. There's a couple different lock washers you can use. You can use just a regular lock washer. On the Rox Fab, found it was best to use a Nordlock lock washer. And I am using the original Spicer locking hub spring lock washers, which I believe they would have held up just fine if you could get a proper torque on this particular, on the mile marker hub without being clearanced. The Warren hubs, they're still tight with these spring washers. Both the Nordlock and the Spicer spring washer are quite a bit more expensive than just a regular lock washer. You know, if it keeps water and dirt out, isn't that kind of the point? We'll see if we can get a socket on these now. Once you know, you get the bolts all loose and the hub kind of moves around a little bit, you can usually start getting your socket under it. So I will clearance that hub before I reinstall it. Now we're to the spindle nuts, and I can find what I did with it. I have just a wood chisel right here. Just a Harbor Freight set of wood chisels for, you know, like if that hub was stuck on, just kind of getting in behind it. You know, for something like this, getting the tabs bent back up. Who cares? It's a Harbor Freight tool. If you break it, so what? That's what they're made to do, right? Actually, these are the best Harbor Freight tools I ever bought, was the wood chisels. You know, they're not good for chiseling wood, but for a punch or a chisel or whatever, yeah, they work just fine. Okay, that's where your picks come in. If you have two, a lot of times that works best because you can kind of lock it out if it's a little jammed in there, which this one wasn't too bad. You take your internet off. And that one shouldn't be tight at all. I just am lazy. And then there is one more flat washer in there, or there should be. You can use a pick and take that out. Sometimes they can kind of wedge on there and get a little stuck. I haven't found that to be the case with this particular vehicle. Just the tolerances are just right to where it doesn't get stuck. I may or may not offer an upgraded washer that's USA made. The tolerances of that might be a little tighter. You might have to pull that off before you try and take the hub off. I don't know, the factory Mahindra ones, at least that washer seems to be just fine. So now you just pull the hub off. If you get any resistance, like this one is a little bit, it off like that. If you have to, get in behind there with a pry bar, and then just, you know, it should just pop right off. So that's what it is. And you want to hold your hand over the end of it and you pull it off so the bearing doesn't drop out, get all dirty. But there's the bearing and seal. Like there's the bearing. Because I am checking the grease, I'll probably take this bearing out and check it and repack it just for fun. But yeah, like I said, the other side, I didn't need to. I don't think I'll need to with this side, but just to satisfy my curiosity, I might. And then you can set this aside. And then because the goal today is to inspect my snazzy spindle seal setup, which is back in there, we got to go a little bit farther. We'll take the spindle off, 9/16 socket. Probably don't need it on hot. And you can take the brake shield off. And then take the spindle off. This one is just a hair stuck. I'm just gonna tap lightly. I do have a fancy spindle puller which threads onto the end and it's on a slide hammer. Those work real good. But if you just lightly tap, you can get it separated. You don't want to hit too hard because then you'll kind of dink where the bearing's supposed to seat on. Let's move it. A lot of this is dirt, a little of it's rust. Of course, the other side popped right off. There we go. All right, and I will be putting anti-seize around this flange so it can't get rusted into the pilot of the knuckle. But I'm looking at this grease in here where the spindle bushing is. Spindle bushing still looks new. The grease is fine. The seal didn't let any dirt or water and doesn't look like. It's kind of a multi-piece deal, this seal, compared to this other seal I come up with on the outer end. And it'll work both on the CV shaft and the factory shafts with the U-joint in them. But that's it. I just wanted to show you guys what I was coming up with and how easy it is to take apart, and also how much like an older vehicle it is. About the only thing that's different is instead of fancy keys that retain the brake caliper, it's a couple of bolts, which is fantastic. So that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed watching. If you got any questions, you can get a hold of me anytime. Till then, we'll see you next time.